Hey folks, there was a time a few years ago in which I was far more active in creating socio-political content in which I discussed global issues and particularly the situation here in South Africa. Well, if you look at the current goings on in my country right now, you'll see that we are in quite a tumultuous period at the moment. Whether it's the ANC's obvious intention to legally mandate the expropriation of land for what it deems to be the public good, or South Africa's involvement in armed conflict with other African nations. There's a lot going on right now. So the question is, why aren't I talking about it? Simply put, I've decided that I'm done feeding the beast. You see, there's not much point in me going on for hours about all the things that are wrong with South Africa. I am not someone with a large audience or a network of contacts with the ability to affect real change. I'm just a random South African speaking into a phone camera. Also, if I were to express what I really think about the state of South Africa, I would run the risk of being arrested because my real opinions, expressed with no filter, would most likely contravene this country's local hate speech legislation. So, particularly for you Americans who might see this, above all else, you should be thankful that your constitution protects free speech in the way that it does. Because that value is not a universal absolute elsewhere in the world. The other reason that I'm not talking about all the negative stuff that directly affects my life in South Africa is that the vast majority of the people who care whether I live or die are residents of Western nations who right now are mostly cautiously optimistic about the future of their own countries. And they, for once, have a right to be happy. There's only so many times I can make videos telling people that things are headed in a bad direction in South Africa before the statement becomes boring and redundant. I want to do whatever I can in my limited capacity to add positivity and happiness to the world. And yes, I know that sounds like a very hippy-dippy thing to say, but it's true. That's why I'm not constantly following the news and telling you how shit everything is. Because at the end of the day, that doesn't add much to the world. And as I mentioned previously, my opinions on South Africa are very cynical and black-pilled, to use internet vernacular. And although I have reasons for feeling the way I do, having personally survived both a home invasion and a large-scale riot in my life, talking about these things ad nauseum doesn't really contribute anything of value. It's not productive because, as I said, I don't have the power to change anything. Despite what the ANC's propaganda would suggest or have you believe, as a fairly young white South African, I wield no institutional power. So I can spend days on end complaining about all sorts of things. and it will make no difference if other people outside of South Africa, and therefore not subject to our hate speech legislation, choose to make content addressing the corruption and general incompetence of South African politicians, or the looming danger of racially motivated violence, then I say more power to them. But it is just simply not an effective use of my time, in my opinion anyway. What I hope for you is that during this very unstable and constantly changing period in human history, that you are able to live your life in a way that brings you meaning, fulfillment, and happiness. Because that's really all any of us can hope for. That's all I've got to say for now. Look after yourselves, take care of each other, and for now, farewell.